Hey everybody, welcome back to the next episode of the Legacy Liftoff podcast by Yoder. Today is a special guest with me, Mike Yoder, founder of Drone Deer Recovery and NuWay Ag. Mike, thanks for being on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the invite. I feel honored.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. I've been following your stuff for a while. Like I mentioned to you before, it's a kid living in Wisconsin, growing up hunting, fishing. My dad was an avid outdoorsman, still is. Filming for a hunting TV show. Obviously, gravitated towards your content. I have done some drone deer recoveries in the past, so it's an honor to have you on as well because I think you really in a lot of ways started the drone deer recovery wave of
Yep.
using drones for this type of work, which I think we've all probably, it's like, oh, could you use them for scouting and this and that, but you've
Yep.
taken it to a new way. But I always like to start every podcast in the beginning, just kind of learning about you and kind of where you were before this even became a thing, where you were working or how this all came about, you getting into the drone industry.
Yeah. Well, it all started from me. I had another business. It was called Anywhere Tree Care, and what I did with that is take down hazardous trees around houses and structures with large cranes, craning them down, doing that type of stuff. And while doing that work, I injured my back. One day, a customer called me. He's like, "Hey, Mike, this log's still out in front of my lawn. You said you're going to be here and cut it up." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I forgot all about it," and rushed over there in a hurry to get this taken care of. Frustrated at myself and upset that I forgot about it, I started cutting this log into chunks and just throwing them into the woods. One of the chunks I leaned over and was not lifting with my legs, and I just ripped it off the ground and I snapped something in my back and dealt with unbelievable pain for like 2 years before I ever got checked out. Later found out that I ruptured a disc in L4, L5 disc was ruptured. And during that time, my company, my tree company went through a bad audit. The state audited me and then demanded 80 some $1,000s to be paid like at a snap of a finger. Basically, the auditor didn't give a rip who I was. He was like, "Good luck, Mike. Hope you're able to keep the doors open." And yeah, so that bill needed to be paid right then and there. And we didn't have a ton of money. Started getting stressed out about the company, was also in pain. And about that same time, I started casually drinking just beer and started drinking more beer. And finally, that wasn't enough. And I started drinking hard liquor. And I basically, in my own terms, I felt like I became an alcoholic. I needed a drink as soon as I got up until I went to bed. And it was just a bad time in my life where I don't even know why I did it. I would say probably stress and my pain to try to ease things, but it's not a good excuse. I don't know why I did it. But during that time, Jared Scheffler from Whitetail Adrenaline had called me and he's like, "Hey, what's up, Mike?" And I'm like, I was so down at the time he could just hear in my voice that I'm not really fired up about anything really in life. I had a business, I had a house, I had more money than I had at that time, and what am I doing with my life? Just drinking it away didn't make any sense. And so Jared talked to me that night for about an hour on the phone. He's like, he just went through something kind of similar where he was burnt out with his business and just doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And he was like, Mike, you have to do something that you want to go do, like even if it's as much as like going out on a walk and not thinking about a business, or going fishing or something like that. And so then I was like, you know what, I got to really do that. I got to do something that I want to get back into. And in the meantime, I started praying to the Lord again, and I was like, Lord, give me something new, something that motivates me, drives me, gets me going, because like I'm an entrepreneur, I can get fired up, and I just wasn't doing that at that time. So in the meantime, I started praying to the Lord for new dreams, something that really gets me going. I went to a buddy of mine's place, like a Saturday afternoon, showed up, and I was like, yeah, I thought about getting a thermal drone to do carcass recovery. He's like, I think it'd be a good idea. he hires a thermal drone out of Columbus to do some roof inspections for their commercial buildings, and he thought it'd be a good idea. And so I was like, yeah, why don't I do that? And went out and bought a $8,000 drone, and what I call now a baby drone. And
Mhm.
I went and made a video about it and took it to an outdoor show. And my booth from that day on was the talked about uh, booth at the show. So that's how it got started. As much as it kind of sucks, is I was at my lowest point probably in my life at that time. Um, I've never been that low, and now I would say it's about as good as it's been ever is right now. So being low, kind of just praying to the Lord give me something new. This is it. This drone deer recovery was started from that.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you being vulnerable and being honest with yourself too, as well as everybody else, right? It's like that's the first thing you got to do is just kind of own up to it and understand
Yep.
what's in front of you, and just
Yep.
having your faith obviously helps, and pushing
Yep.
you through it and trying to find something that made you happy and that you could actually live towards being excited for and going for it. So I commend you for that, because it's one thing to do that and just stick to where you're at and be down on it and don't really change anything and keep in this cycle of what you were doing. Also, just like, hey, randomly buy a $8,000 drone because a buddy of yours
Yep.
tells you about an opportunity, and hey, went for it, right? So
Yeah.
even
Yep.
more awesome. What was that first drone that you bought? That first thermal?
It was the Dual, the Mavic,
Mavic Dual, the
Mavic
Enterprise.
Dual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Enterprise Dual. Yep.
Yeah, and that, at that time, probably, I don't know what year was that when you started?
Well, that would have been almost 3 years ago.
Okay. So
Yep.
2021 after COVID. Yeah, I was like, there was,
Yeah. Yep. I'm trying to think.
or I guess
I
during
should try to
COVID.
keep all those dates straight, but I don't truly know exactly. But so basically, Drone Deer, the actual company of Drone Deer, has been in business for 18 months. But prior to that, I was just doing it on my own. So yeah, I think this year it'll be like season 3.
Sweet. That's
Yep.
awesome. And you've seen good growth, and I know you've transitioned in a lot of ways since then, and you've spun off and started a new company, and I think it's awesome. But before we kind of get into that, so when you got this thermal drone, you had this idea with you and a buddy, you're kind of thinking about it like, hey, we could do this carcass recovery.
Yep.
You being where you're at too in the Midwest, right? There's a lot of need for that. I think the biggest thing that people, even myself, when they ask me about it, is like, how do you make it a business, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
go out and how do you make it so that people want to pay for this? And from my perspective, I get it, right? It's like a drone business hunter where you get it, because this people don't. The biggest thing for a lot of hunters is like they don't want that animal to suffer. They don't want it to go to waste. They don't want the coyotes to get it. They don't want any. They also, it might be a trophy buck that they've been having on their property for years, and they've been following trail cameras or whatever it is. But from your perspective, when you took it from an idea to like, all right, how do we make this a business? What was that kind of initial first step or thought process when you're like, all right, I'm gonna start doing this full time? And
Well,
or did
for
it start
me,
part time?
thankfully, there was nobody in my area whatsoever doing it. So when I went to that, outdoor show, I am the only guy in the state that is offering it as a service. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the only guy that was doing it. This is the only guy that everybody knows is at this show. And so at that show, it gave me a lot of insight on what I can charge, because there's guys, they were asking me, what would you charge to do a recovery? And I told them I'd probably be like $300. And so many people walked past and they said, no, Mike, you're going to have to charge more. And that was the truth, because come that fall, I went out and my phone just started ringing. Day one, season opening. I was in Colorado. I was out doing an elk hunt, and the season opened in here, and my phone started ringing. So for me to talk business, I can motivate you to try to go do your own business, and you're going to have to do a lot more legwork than I had, because there was nobody doing it. Like, let's be honest, there
Yeah.
was nobody doing it in my area. And so it was the easiest thing to get started. Is there was no other option. So when somebody needed a deer found, it was either a dog or a drone. And once they see a drone work and how effective it is, they don't use a dog. And so, yeah, for me to tell you how to go out and start a business, I can tell you to start with data. Like, look at your county or your state, how many deer get shot, and start figuring out how many deer, how many antlered deer, what will people pay for the service, feel it out, and then adjust it from there. But for me, it's just been crazy from day one. I didn't even have to really put in a lot of work to get work because I was the only one. I'm thankful for that. And I don't want to take it for granted, but I would say that it needs to start, if somebody wants to do a business like this, it needs to start with having a passion, helping people. If you're going to do it only for the money, stop. Like, don't even buy a drone, because if you're only going to do it for the money, it's not going to work. This is a service-based business that you have to provide customer service. If you're there to take their dollars, you fly your drone for, 30 minutes and you're like, nope, can't find it, have to leave. No, that's not going to work. You're going to do it for one season. You're going to get bad mouth and it's not going to work. So you as a person have to have it in you to want to help people. And if you want to help people, then it will grow on its own, because if you give it your all, the next guy, talks to his buddy like, yeah, I had this drone pilot out and like he put in a lot of effort, and I was like, you're never going to find it. And he's like, no, give me time. And he kept flying, and you know what? Like 2 hours into it, he found him. Like, I can't even believe it. Like, so you have to want to help the people. And if you have that, I think you'll have a successful business.
Yeah, I mean that goes with anything, right? One, that right timing, right place, like where you were at before, right? I mean, you also documented it though, right? I mean, you were having people shoot content in some spots for you at these shows, and just kind of while you're out on site, right? Being able to show off the process and that you were actually doing it. But then word of mouth, because you're treating people the right way and you're
Yeah.
doing it because you're really truly helping people. And
Yep.
I think that's just what I mean. I preach it all the time. It's like collaboration over competition, and making sure that at the end of the day, if they don't refer you, then ask the question of why not, because you probably
Yeah.
didn't do something to the point where they were happy, right? and
Yep.
and
Yep.
at the end of the day, that goes with any business, whether it's drone deer recovery or thermal mapping of a construction site, or
Yep.
whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Making sure that you understand what is a successful, and for you, it's a little bit, I think, more black and white, right? It's we find it or we don't, right? In a lot of ways, but also it's
Yep.
like the ability for them to be hyped up, because I've seen it myself with recovering some, like they get jacked up, right? It's like
Yep.
that's super exciting,
Yep.
and it's a big moment as well. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's part of the company as well, right? When I started it, people could tell that I want to create content. That was part of the whole thing. Is and I have to say, you know, guys that were in it before me, they were kind of on the low key. They're like, we don't want people to know that we're using drones because we don't know if it's technically legal or not legal, or this or that. And the reason people don't know about them is they kept it on the down low. And I was not going to do that. Like, my thing is, when I started this, I'm like, I'm documenting, I'm releasing it. I'm going to show the world how good this actually works. That's that's why everybody knows drone deer now, is because of the content, because of putting the footage out there. And it's like, if I wouldn't have showed that, right, it helps my business, but it also puts my business in a situation where, I might get a letter from an attorney in another state and be like, no, you can't do this in our state or whatever, you're going to get sued. And it's like, no, I'm okay with you coming at me like that, because I believe that this is good for the hunting industry. Put it in the right hands, use it the right way, it can be good. We get all, I don't even know if we were going to get into it. It's all about like, well, the guy could, use it for bad. Yes, he could.
always,
But
yeah.
there's all kinds of other things he could do and use it for bad. But why do we always go to that right away? That it frustrates the crap out of me. And so that's, me going and being vulnerable, taking footage, showing the world. I was like, whatever, I'm doing it. I don't care. Basically, when I bought my drone, from a guy from Wisconsin. I told him that. And I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm going back home and I'm making YouTube content on this, and this is going to go big. And he's like, okay. And I don't know if he I don't know if he truly believed me or not, but he sees it now. It's
Yeah.
like, he could have probably done the same thing if he would have been a character, if he would have had, the views. It gets it going.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I mean, but I think it's a good thing too because at the end of the day, transparency is key in a new industry, any industry that is like penetrating a. You're combining two industries, right? Like you're helping the hunting industry, outdoors industry, but using new technology with
Yep.
drones or newer,
Yep.
right? At the time, that ultimately can really help out. I mean, I'll go there too if you want to go there because you did kind of segue into like the whole legality and everything and whatnot. Because plenty of times, myself included, is just like people ask, is like, well, can I use it for scouting? Can I use it for this and that? And it's like, no, right? Like, in a lot, it depends where you're at in a lot of different areas and there are different things. But I know since you have been so transparent and you put out your content, you have been in some legal battles with obviously some state legislator, right? I believe that ultimately for the recovery, right, of carcasses.
Yep.
And I don't know how much you can or can't say about that, but is there anything you can
Well,
touch more on, like
the
your
state of Michigan is the state that we're in a lawsuit, and basically, what is the lawsuit about? It is because they tell us we can't do it in the state of Michigan, and what they are doing is they are hindering free speech because they're saying I can't tell a hunter give the location of where that carcass is laying. That's the portion that we're going after. It's freedom of speech, and it takes a long time to push that through. I do believe, I don't know for sure, but I do believe that the Michigan DNR is trying to figure out how they can rewrite the law to allow it to be used. If that is the case, I assume we would drop the lawsuit if it comes through, because the states are seeing it, right? There's states coming around to it already that are rewriting the law because of how it was written, and they are saying that yes, in the recovery efforts, you can use a thermal drone to locate the carcass. Missouri has done it. The state of Indiana has done it. And there's more states coming that will literally tell you you can use it for the recovery portion because it just makes sense. One part of the law, they tell you that you have to make all reasonable effort to find your carcass. But then right after that, they tell you, except a drone. Wait, how's that make any sense? You
right?
tell us we have to do anything possible except a drone. So yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue is yeah, the laws were written in a way where maybe drone technology wasn't fully understood, right? Or it
Yeah.
wasn't like again, going to the worst case scenario every time. It's like they're managing the exception, not the rule, right? Like let's manage the rule and not the exception and flip that on its head because you're obviously there's the the benefits far and outweigh the disadvantages to it because
Yep.
it's just unfortunate that that's the way it is, and I don't want to get too much into the legal speak, but I did want to bring it up just because you mentioned it because it's important, and I think I can speak for others too, but I appreciate you going to bat and obviously being a part of pushing some of those rewriting of those rules, whether you wanted to or not. I think it's just kind of the some of the ownership has fallen on you with you just being transparent and putting your content out there. So I think appreciate you being a part of that and helping the industry in some ways push that forward because
Yeah.
you got to do it because it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. It really
Yeah.
doesn't.
You know what's crazy about the whole thing is we have literally made states say the dumbest things that they otherwise wouldn't say. So like the state of Michigan, or not Michigan, Pennsylvania, right? They want to tell you you cannot use it to recover a carcass. They literally, I forget the guy's name. I'd have to go back if you edit it in here or whatever. The head of their game commission, I think it was speaking, and they were trying to get. I think it was. I I don't know exactly what they were talking about, but he said that if a guy shoots a deer and it is 30 minutes after sunset. And this has now just been brought up because of the drones. If a guy is tracking a deer 30 minutes after sunset, he is hunting the deer, and that is illegal activity. So what they're saying is, based on how the law is written currently, is if you are tracking a deer and you recover that deer 30 minutes after sunset, you are illegal. But then he says in the same breath, but we aren't enforcing that. But they're just now made aware about it because of how they're interpreting the law when using drones to recover a carcass. Because that was our
Makes
thing.
zero
It's
sense.
like they're saying we're hunting. How can you be hunting if the hunting hours are over, right? So if the hunting hours are over 30 minutes after sunset and you're flying a drone, how can you technically be hunting? And then
Yeah.
that's where they were like, well, now that you say that, yeah, like technically you would be hunting even if you recover a carcass without a drone. And it's like, come on, guys.
I
Like, come
mean,
on.
anybody that's hunted in their lives, they know that, like, one, if you have, depending on where you know hit the animal, you might always leave that thing until the next morning if it's a gut
Yeah.
shot or something where it's like, you're gonna not push it further, and you're not gonna make sure that it gets up and keeps running, and then you'll never find it, right? And then the coyotes will find it, or it'll get hit by the road someone on the road when it's trying to run as fast as it can to get away from you. That just doesn't make any sense to me, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's been around since forever, right? Since
Yeah.
hunting is like your ways and your strategies and your way to track an animal or to follow a blood trail and everything else that goes into finding an animal without a drone. Some of the best
Yeah.
times are during, midnight or beyond, when you things have
Yep.
calmed down and
Yep. Did you
settled a
see
little
that
bit.
part when I released it, where that guy was saying that? It's
I did.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
saw snippets of it.
it is like it literally made mainstream. It's like, what in the Sam Hill is this guy talking about?
Well, I think he kind of clearly put himself in that position and kind of showed his true unknowledgeable, I guess, view on it, because
Yeah.
if you're projecting it in one way and then you're kind of contradicting yourself another way, I mean, you're just shooting
Yep.
yourself in the foot, right? No pun
Yep.
intended. But yeah, man, again, I want to just like jump away from it, but I want
Yeah.
to be curious of your time and stuff too. But again, appreciate obviously that whole realm, because I think for every state, no matter what you're in, it's a huge benefit for a lot of reasons,
Yep.
and
Yep.
uh, it only makes sense. I don't, again, find a way for it not to make sense unless, again, of course, we have this in every industry, right? You have people flying over a NFL stadium during a game because they don't know, right? I mean,
Yep.
it all comes back to the education of like, hey, if you're
Yep.
going to use a drone for recovering a carcass or finding a deer or that specific action when you're hunting, do it this way and there's no problems, right?
Yep.
And I think part of it, the rule is, right, is like not to be able to use it for gaining a advantage on the
Yep.
animal, right?
Yep.
So that ultimately you can't scout it or check their patterns, or like if you're turkey hunting, it's like, oh, they're moving that way, and then go hunt them right away, right? There has to
Yeah.
be some laws and stuff there. But when there's a down animal and we don't want to waste anything. We don't want
Yep.
all of that. So um, I think there's a lot of advantages to it, and hopefully we just
Yeah.
keeps going and improving and improving. So yeah, you've been doing it 18 months, you said, now in business. Obviously taking the world by storm in a lot of ways from that, but I noticed, and you've kind of transitioned, or you've created a new company as well, right? With NuWay
Yep.
Ag.
Yep.
Um, Coming from someone that I actually started in the drone industry in the agricultural space, this was like over a decade ago, when it was a very different industry and drones were very, very new to farmers and whatnot. I think it's an awesome business. I see a lot of successful business owners in, the egg space now, but I would love to hear kind of your transition, or how you took what you were doing with drone deer recovery, and what was kind of that moment where you're like, all right, I want to start NuWay Ag, or how did that even
Yeah.
come about?
Well, obviously, I started drone deer, and I started drone deer and was becoming successful with drone deer. And my thing was like I still had that tree business, and I was like, man, if I could just do drones full time. This thermal drone thing is working in the hunting season. It works. It pays me well in the hunting season. But if I can do something else in the drone space that would really like get me full time, that's what I wanted to do. So as the season was slowing down, I was already looking to reinvest some of the money I had made into some other type of drone space. I tried, the orthomosaic mapping type of stuff. I wanted to do something on the commercial side for construction. It's really hard to get good contracts on that for me. Not saying that there's not guys that can do it, but it was hard. And so I started checking into the agricultural side. And when I got my first big ag drone, I was like, I think this is going to be a thing. Like once you understand the system, and bought an XAG drone. Was a great hardware type of drone, horrible software. Dealt with it for like 2 months, ripping my hair out because of how frustrated I was with the software, and switched over to DJI. I mean, that's all I've been flying before with DJI, and some guy just happened to catch me at the right time at a show, and I told him, yeah, I'm looking at getting into spray drones, and I was on DJI, and I don't know how he did it, but somehow he convinced me to buy this other XAG drone. And so I did, and that was a horrible mistake. I lost money on it. But when I switched over to the DJI drones and started seeing how efficient a guy can spray, I knew it's going to be a thing. So now I got to step back. Uh, because of my Instagram reach that I had from Drone Deer, there is a guy in Indiana that is a helicopter pilot that seen what I done and how hard I work, and he reached out to me through Instagram. He DM'd me and he's like, I don't know if we released a couple ag videos, and he's like, Mike, I see you're getting into ag. Want to see if you'd be willing to bring a team out to Indiana to help us cover tens of thousands of acres. And I was like, I'd love to. I have no idea exactly what I'm doing. I mean, I'm getting started learning all on my own. Hard
Mhm.
knocks. Like nobody ever taught me how to fly an ag drone. So I had to learn it all on my own. And so we went to Indiana. We invested like $35,000 in an ag trailer that was no good. It worked for that season, but learned a lot on the fly. It was just like get these acres done, and no formal training type of people telling you how to do the system. Went to Indiana and absolutely kicked butt. Like we did more acres than any of the other teams that were there, probably because of my motivation and my go-getter attitude, and then also just having a system in place. And we
Yeah.
sprayed 11,000 acres in 24 days. When I did that, I was like, this is going to be a real thing. And so we started talking about designing our own trailer and getting more efficient, even better. Like I wasn't even peak efficiency in Indiana. And so I was looking at figuring out how to be really efficient, and it started with a trailer. And so, um, yeah, we built the NuWay Ag trailer. It's a flight deck up top with a 22-foot deck over trailer on the bottom. You have your chemical and your spray and your water in the bottom. You bring your hose up through the floor and you fill your drones up top. You take your drones off from the top. It's clean, it's light, and it's versatile. And so we started
Clean house
building.
too. Yeah.
Thank you. We started building those and mass producing them, and now we transition into selling ag drones, training people how to fly ag drones, selling drone trailers, doing the whole nine yards to get people in the drone industry to be able to make life-changing money in a business that is absolutely exploding all across America, and it will continue to grow for 7 to 10 years is what I'm predicting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the market is ripe for it right now, right? We're kind of in that generational turnover from like old school farming to some of the newer generations of farming in adapting technology in a lot of different ways, right? We've already started to see it, but
Yep.
it's come a long way, and
Yep.
it is, I believe for sure a huge industry to get into.
Yeah.
Whether
Yep.
you're mapping farmers' fields, finding crop deficiencies, right?
Yep.
You're finding NDVI data, you're spraying, whatever it is. I think there's a market for it for sure. And I love the trailer too. We'll have to put the video. I think you do a right a tour of it, kind of the entire setup. It is badass. It's cool to
Yeah.
see. I'm sure anybody that sees you pulling up to a job is gonna be like, all right, yeah, Mike's serious. Like
Yeah. So
they know what
that was
they're doing.
probably the biggest thing about doing drone spraying is a lot of guys started it 4 years ago, and they just had one drone in the back of a pickup truck, and they'd show up at a farmer's, location wanting to spray 500 to 1,000 acres with one drone out of a pickup truck. It's just not a good look. The farmer wants redundancy. He wants you to have multiple drones because if you crash one, he doesn't want his whole operation to, not get sprayed. And so if you show up with a NuWay trailer with two drones on it, they know you're serious. Like I go to I go to chemical companies and show up in this trailer, and it's like, okay, yep, we understand what's going on. And then they give us acres because they know that we're there to cover acres and do it right. And so that's the biggest thing is what we look like and convincing. It's like I started out in a pickup truck thing, and I feel bad that the farmer that had the experience of me having one drone, because I have one drone and I'm trying to do it out of a pickup, and my drone went down. And now this farmer had spent, who knows what, thousands of dollars on this chemical, and I had mixed up and my drone is down. Well, without a drone, I can't spray. And now he has this chemical because the chemical is the farmer's.
Yep,
Now he has this chemical that's mixed up that he doesn't know what to do
can
with
use it.
because
Yeah,
there's no way to get it on there. So it was a bad experience. And so what I tell guys, if you want to get into this, as much as it sucks, you gotta go all in. Like you are gonna need $100,000 to do it right. That 100,000 can pay you back fast. I'm telling you, if you have 10,000 acres and you charge $15 an acre, that's $150,000, and you should be able to spray that in 30 days. If you charge $12 an acre and you do 10,000 acres in 30 days, that's $120,000. That's more than your, initial investment up front.
yep.
And it's not to be sales pitchy. Like I tell you true numbers. Like I did 11,000 acres and was paid $12 an acre. I made $132,000. Like it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect to work from 9 to 5 because that's not a thing in agriculture spraying. It's
Yep.
work from 4 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. at night. And just get up and do it again. Do it for 30 days straight. Work your butt off, and you will make it. And so I'm telling you, guys are going to do it all across the country. I guarantee you, like what I'm saying, there's going to be guys all across the country that do the same thing I do because they got the right setup and they got trained properly. It's just going to be like drone deer. Like you were
Yep.
talking about drone deer, how everybody does it. There's probably, if I'd guess right now, there's probably anywhere from 700 to 2,000 people that probably went and bought a thermal
Oh
drone
yeah.
of some kind to do carcass recovery.
Yeah.
Maybe not all as a business, but a lot of them want to do it as a business. Others want to do it for personal. But
Yep.
these are going to be the same thing. There's going to be a ton of people that do it as a custom applicating. There's going to be farmers that do it for their own. They're here and they're going to stay and they're only going to get better. It's like if you've been in drones long enough, you see how fast they progress and how much better they get. Like let's talk about the DJI Phantom. When that thing came to the market, it flew for
2015, 14,
yeah,
15,
it
16.
flew for
Oh yeah.
like 10 minutes without a good camera, is clunky. It didn't really work right. Now we can get, Matrice 30T. This sucker, flies for 30 minutes carrying a 200 times zoom camera and it's just good. It works. These ag drones are going to be the same way. It's like, yes, they work great now, but I'm telling you, there's going to be a day that we look back and we're going to be like, you remember when we used to use those things? Because
Yep.
they're getting that good that fast.
For sure. I mean, that's always been the drone industry, right? It's like technology goes so fast that
Yep.
regulations and everything else has to catch up, right? I mean, it really does. And no, I think it's awesome because You're taking advantage of a market that is ripe, that you
Yep.
got to get out there and work. You got to grind. I think like anything else, I've talked about that a lot on other podcasts. It's like just not. You don't even have to be a business person, but you have to have the motivation. You have to
Yep.
have the grind to be able to get out there and do it. I mean, if anybody's out there that doesn't want to work for 30 days straight and make 130, 150 grand, I mean, I don't know what's wrong with that, right? It's like I would go in isolation for 30 days, right, to
Yep.
make a yearly salary, a
Yep.
pretty above average yearly salary in a month, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now do that for 2 or 3 months, and then
Yep.
go take off for a little bit.
Yep.
Take a
I'm telling you.
four
Yep.
4 or 5 months like retirement, like retire for half the year, whatever you got to do. But
Yep.
obviously, if you want to grow and you want to scale and you want to keep going with it, you can make it a huge, 7-figure or more business if you
Oh
really,
yeah.
really do
Oh
it.
yeah.
Um,
Oh
and I
yeah.
do want to say, like, your pricing, you know, because a lot of people out there too have done like mapping of farmers' fields, right? Like that acreage per acreage is different than spraying. I
Yep.
mean, like
Yep.
your cost per acre is significantly more on a spraying drones because you have the chemicals, you have obviously a lot more of equipment, and the trailer, everything else. Like so your cost is up there compared to you showing up with like a M3E or something like a 30T or whatever it is that you're using to map a farmer's
Yep.
field, right? So it's
Yep.
different in that way because I know a lot of pilots that are just grinding the acreage on flying farmers fields with certain sensors and then grabbing all their data and giving it to them. And those are like multiple times a flight. I guess that's one thing I'd ask too is like when you're spraying a farmer's field, say you're doing 10,000 acres, right? Are you always just doing that once, or how many times are you going back? Are you spraying it once in the beginning or in middle and end, or is it just
So
a one-time
yeah,
application?
so last year that was all different farmers. One application. We might do some of those same fields this year. So this business is definitely like a repeat thing, but it's
Mhm.
usually the same fields do not get sprayed multiple times in the same year. Now you could do. Actually, I say that, and I just got a call while we're on this podcast. There's a company that hired us to do fungicide application on wheat, and now they want us to come back and do an insecticide application. You could have done fungicide and insecticide at the same time, but they didn't think it was necessary at the time. Now they want us to come back and do insecticides. So yeah, you might there might be scenarios where you go back and spray the same field in the same year, but for the most part, like the spraying that I'm talking about and the row crop that I'm talking about is corn. And if you are raising corn, yeah, high yield corn, most guys will spray fungicide. They'll put a fungicide on the corn, and so it's called the corn run. And what the corn run's going on is you just try to cover as much corn as you can in that short period because there's a really narrow time period of needing to get that product on there. So if you miss that window, you got to keep going to the next one. So
Yep.
yeah, the corn
Is
run is in July.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean that's the thing about agricultural too. Like you have to be spot on, right? I mean, like even when you're mapping, like you got to do it before you plant, like, and then there's like 6 different times throughout that growing season that you got to come back and you got to remap those fields to understand all the data that you need, right? So it's very timing with agricultural, but being on that timing, you can always plan for that, right? Like you
Yep.
know when it's gonna happen, you know what's coming
Yep.
when you need it.
Yep.
Any way to like combined like your like in a way where you could doing like food plot plant day or like stuff with the drones with like obviously land management for deer hunting and that type of is pretty significant in that way. Is there any like crossover like selling that you could do with like people doing land management and doing their
Yeah,
own food
so I think
plots
there's
and
a
stuff like that?
market there's a market for that as well, but it's a lot smaller than row
Yeah,
crop. So that's a really specialty type thing there. You're going to have to charge more per acre. You might need to charge per project because
yeah,
if you're sending your drone into these real small food plots, you're not going to get a lot of acres done. So how could you charge by the acre? So you might need to charge by
yeah.
the project. I've done a couple small ones like that. Uh, could I have a business just doing that. I think I could if I
Mhm.
wanted to. Right now, it's not my focus from a service standpoint.
Yeah.
Now, if that is what you want to do and you want to get the drones and you want to get the setup, we can get you help you get set up, and we'll even train you those small, hard to reach areas, how to utilize your drone in those areas. Definitely is a business. I just don't know, that
Yeah.
it's
How
so.
big? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, so just to touch on that then, because you mentioned it, right? You have the service side with NuWay Ag, right? And then you also have the product training setup, like sales of the entire kits and everything that you need to get started in this industry,
yeah,
right? You want to
yeah.
touch a little bit more on that, or like on how, people, if they're interested in this industry, or they're interested in, reaching out to you for setting this up, or so what are your kind of offerings then between that service side local as well as then your kits?
Yeah. So as far as the agricultural side, when I say if you want to get into this, they can reach us through the NuWay Ag website, NuWay dot or AYAG.com. When I say training is so many people get scared. It's like, well, I've never flown a big drone. Like, how do I get started? If you buy the drones from us, we'll provide the training. Come out here to our farm and we will go to fields and we will literally put the drone in the sky. We will show you how to calibrate it. We'll show you how to do flight plans. We'll show you everything you need to know to be comfortable flying these drones. So I have a whole team for customer service. If you have questions, we'll try to troubleshoot them, this and that. But yeah, I want to be able to help these people that want to get into this industry. So
Love it.
it starts with having the proper setup, and that's guys want to call me and say I want one drone. I'm like, I understand you want to only buy one drone, but if you're going to do what I talk about, that I'm doing in my videos, this is what you'll need. So that's when you really find out how serious people are.
Yeah, practice what you preach, right? And
Yep.
ultimately show it off and the way it should be done.
Yep.
So you're doing the same thing then with drone deer recovery right now as well, of where you're providing like kits for people to, if they want to do that themselves in their own market, or
Yep.
have a business. Is that something where
Yeah.
you have like a
So
pilot
we
network
do
and
offer
do that,
that
or
as well, where if you want to buy the drone deer recovery kit, you can come to our location and we'll do drone training. Like we'll physically get you to fly your drone. We'll do classroom stuff. We'll actually go out and do thermal stuff. I'll teach on some thermal. Uh, the only thing I'm not helping you with on that side of business is helping you establish a name, filing those things for you. I'm going to try to get you comfortable flying, get you experience so that when you go home, you can continue flying and getting comfortable and then doing your own marketing and doing that type of thing. Now,
yep,
you can list your business on our website on dronedeerrecovery.com. That way, when somebody's in your area needing a thermal drone pilot, they can find you on the website, and then they can contact you through the website. That is something that we do offer. The next question guys are going to have is, can you certify me? Like certify you as a drone deer recovery operator. We are not doing that at that time. That was a business kind of like a licensing business deal that we did back in the day, and it was a bad decision on my part to try to do that because it was hard to police,
yeah.
what guys were doing, and then guys would come here, get training, go home, and put somebody else on their drone, and so now that guy's not even drone deer recovery trained, and he's saying he's like us, and it was a bad deal.
Well, and it's good, good that you figured those things out and pivoted and moved away from it and figured out that there's a better way to do it. And you kind of moved on from that, or found an alternative that still helps people out, still provides them the guidance and training and just kind of
Yep.
knowledge to do it. So, no, Mike, I love it. I love it. I think it's badass what you're doing, and I'll continue to follow along and help where I can. And yeah, I guess I always like the close of kind of like, where do you see, yourself, drone deer recovery, NuWay Ag? I know you mentioned obviously some of the parts here, but like, where do you see future wise, like this year that you guys are going? And then, also, who do you want to connect with? Who do you want people to reach out to, and how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of things in the works that are going to go absolutely madness, and we'll say it on this podcast the first because you just hit us right. I just came back from South Africa and was over there creating content showing how heavy lift drones will be used in the hunting space to get big game, small game, you name it, what type of game you got. Drones will be used to fly them out.
Sweet.
That content is coming. I'm hoping to release one of those, videos here in the next couple weeks. But yeah, using thermal
Sweet.
drones in South Africa is also a thing because I've gotten a lot of people asking me, well, would this work in the desert of Arizona or in New Mexico, where there's rocks and it's hot and these bushes and that. And I can tell you it will work. It will definitely work. It will take a very trained eye to do it, but I proved it, and there's videos coming that you guys will be able to watch of me doing it in a desert type atmosphere where there's big rocks, there's they're hot, and I was still able to find animals with thermal. And then the really exciting thing for me right now to talk about is the heavy lift drones. So I don't know if you've seen any of the content lately, short form stuff that I've released, but DJI has released a drone that is specifically built to lift things, fly things a long way.
Hmm.
And I did that in South Africa in the mountains, flying out kudu, flying out red hartebeest, and flying out eland. So big animals, quartering them up and getting them out in minutes versus hours and hours of hard work on the ground.
That's awesome, man. That's super cool. I mean, I can't wait to see some of that stuff when you bring it out. We'll put all of the links and stuff in the show notes for people to, reach out and find your content and follow along because hey, it's some awesome stuff, man. And I
Yeah,
I really
yep,
appreciate you connecting and being on the podcast today and sharing your
yeah,
story
no
and
problem. Yeah,
really appreciate everything that
you're
you've
cutting in and out. I don't
you've done
know
so far
if we're
as
still
well.
on. If guys are looking to get into the thermal side of things, check out dronedeerrecovery.com. And then the agricultural is NuWayAg.com, and that's spelled NuWayG.com. You can reach out to us, and I'd be happy to help you try to get started in the drone industry.
Absolutely. Love it. That's what we're all about. Collaboration over competition, help people out, will help the drone industry grow as well.
Yep.
Again, we'll put all those links in the show notes. So if you guys want them, click down below. Mike, really appreciate you again being here today and we'll have to connect soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Everybody safe flying out there and we'll see you on the next one.